Welcome, Chosen X. You enter a building emptied of rush and dressed in quiet. Shelves rise like patient witnesses and the reading room light moves slowly as if testing your attention. You sit at a long table where the varnish remembers other palms and a person who calls themselves a teacher comes near with a smile measured to the inch. Their tone is soft and practiced, warmth that folds questions closed. They offer a map of routes, methods that promise acceleration and influence. Shortcuts arrive as kindness, technique as liberation, authority as language you were meant to speak. The elegance of these proposals makes obstacles look like artifacts to bypass. At first your pulse answers with curiosity. Then a quieter note pricks, the one that notices a bargain with its cost omitted. This is plain commerce in mentorship clothes. Their curriculum is polished and complete, testimonials are vivid but narrow. Each success story focuses on ascent and leaves other details in shadow. The softest phrase is "you deserve more," and the implication rails against ordinary obligations. You are invited to see neighborly favors and small debts as friction, to cleave attention from slow tasks that bind a community. Watch how speed is framed as virtue and questions as weakness. Notice gentle pressure when they say "trust me" or "only the brave choose this path." Their language seduces by painting urgency as insight. They ask for small sacrifices at first, a night away, a private call, an exclusive group. Those concessions are windows. When surrendered, the room shrinks and externals eclipse the people you used to care for. You have simple tests. Name your obligations aloud and speak the names that anchor you. If the proposed path asks those names to go quiet, hesitate. Ask for written terms. Invite a witness. Give yourself a night. These acts are not avoidance, they are fidelity toward your life. Look for patterns. Are you told to minimize others who might see costs? Is mercy framed as impediment? Do promises require secrecy? Treat these features as early warnings. Scripture or ritual does not remove the need for reason. Sacred language can lack a rot. Polite voices can deliver harm disguised as instruction. Test the fruit. After an encounter, notice how your interior weather changes. Does peace settle or does dread take residence? Does generosity constrict? If compassion grows thin, the lesson fails its first measure. If humility tumbles before applause, the model favors spectacle over service. Let these inner calibrations guide you. Choose patience deliberately. A teacher who flinches in the daylight does not trust their methods. Transparency is a sign of sound practice. If a program cannot show examples of repair and service, it may only train winning rather than healing. Favor a smaller reach that keeps your soul intact. Make repair a practice. On the weekend, serve someone who cannot repay you. Let that act counterbalance training that prizes self-growth over neighbors. Assemble a small group to speak plainly when you are tired and to keep your pledges visible. Meeting with witnesses is not an insult to trust, it is mature armor. When an offer asks you to leave friends, speed into commitment, or believe only the chosen may enter, say "we will meet in daylight and bring witnesses." When flattery mounts, request modest evidence. When urgency appears, ask for time. Speak plainly, then return to the ordinary tasks you already owe. Refuse kindly. You can bless the teacher and keep your distance. Pray for those who pursue power and still protect the fragile. Hold compassion without surrendering your mind. Service is not a stunt, and influence without accountability erodes community. Practice a morning rule. State an intention, love what is true. Name one generous act for the day. Reserve 1 hour for work and 1 hour for presence with others. At night, note one line about how your choices affected a neighbor. Small disciplines accumulate and make deception less nourishing. Leave the room when the air tastes of haste. Walk into the rain and let your pulse settle. Talk to 2 steady friends and describe what was asked. Let them correct your reading without drama. If you already surrendered something that now looks like loss, tell those friends and begin repair with clear speech. This is not an argument against ambition. It is a plea for a measure that preserves your heart. Knowledge joined to kindness expands rather than consumes. Prefer mentors who invite daylight and practice repair publicly. Discernment is a craft built on patience, companionship, and small acts of service. You will leave changed but not owned. Carry back the names you spoke and the small oaths you made. Keep them folded like a map. When the city calls you toward a brighter stage that asks you to shrink love for reach, unfold the map and choose the way that keeps repair at the center. Carry these habits forward and let quiet courage steady each choice you make in public life. You walk back into a brightness that smells of wet pavement and lemon from a cafe window. Night did not cleave the city so much as rearrange its lights. Inside your chest a new ache hums, a wary temperature that will teach you small distinctions. You remember faces who spoke in calm chords and offered routes that promised influence while asking you to untie a neighbor from your life. Their smiles were well-timed. Their questions reoriented the room toward them. Now other figures appear in daylight garb. They are charismatic, polished, and fluent in a language that names success like an affectionate thing. They flatter by implying you belong to an exclusive ascent. Their rhetoric makes solitude sound like proving ground rather than exile. They press for choices that close windows and narrow the field of attention. Where generosity should widen, the scene leans inward. Notice how they handle dissent. If disagreement is met with theatrical hurt or with claims that only the committed can understand, treat that as a structural boundary rather than a personal rebuke. If they request that you excuse small cruelties as necessary discipline, keep listening but do not sign. If they reframe discomfort as initiation, ask who gains from that initiation. You practice a quiet litany of questions now. Who benefits materially and socially if I follow this path? What does leaving my ordinary life cost in hours and relationships? Which elements of my character will be required to change, and who will receive the trade? These queries are not obstacles. They are tools for preserving what was given to you first. You watch them in a studio where a crowd pulses to a syllabus that promises acceleration in days. The talk is clever and the exercises are theatrical. People clap for moments of vulnerability staged as breakthroughs. But you notice a subtle pattern. Breakthroughs are celebrated when they produce spectacle rather than service. The applause becomes a currency polite enough to sell a silence about harm. In a meeting room, a proposed strategy asks for secrecy. In a relationship, a partner suggests that love deepens when the two of you shut the door on old companions and opinions. In an office, a mentor calls loyalty a faster route to promotion than truth-telling. Each suggestion is framed as a shortcut. Each shortcut asks for a ledger with missing columns. You return to the companions who test your reading. They do not perform certainty. They listen to your pulse and your retelling. They ask where tenderness went when a choice was made. They do not rush to judgment. Their habit is to hold you accountable to neighbors and to the small commitments that stitch a life. This practice is not sentimental. It is structural. You begin to catalog the signs of a course that will hollow you slowly. One sign is the privatization of counsel. Another is the elevation of spectacle over repair. A third is the habit of praising ruthlessness as refinement. Mark them, name them aloud, and then check with two steady witnesses. You also learn to recognize purity claims that mask entitlement. When someone invokes principle to justify cutting people out, test whether principles are applied evenly. Does the rule shelter the powerful and punish the vulnerable? If so, do not be surprised if the rhetoric of reform is actually a cover for consolidation. There are kinds of authority that bend toward service. They reward repair and praise humility. They invite critique and show evidence of restored harms. They welcome daylight and expect witnesses. They insist that feats of influence be matched by acts of care. Favor those patterns. In crowded rooms you practice small refusals. You say nothing accusatory. You state a boundary in calm sentences. You request written explanation and names of accountable contact points. You ask for time and you take it. Often the pressure dissolves in the light of simple expectations. You find solace in doing ordinary things well. Cook a meal and give half to a neighbor. Write a short note to someone who helped you and do not broadcast the kindness. Tend a plant because it will not applaud you. These acts rebuild muscles that opportunists hope you have atrophied. As the day wears, you sense how public theater and private care shape who gets to speak and who is heard. You begin to value teachers who return after a failure with a repaired plan. You value leaders who refuse to reward applause when it comes at another person's expense. You are not asked to abandon ambition. You are asked to keep an account that measures how your ascent affects others. Keep that ledger in a pocket where it is easy to consult. Let it be small and practical. Let it remind you to ask 3 questions before consenting to any promise. Let it remind you to invite witnesses and to favor repair over spectacle. Tonight, when a polished voice invites you into a closed room, you will already have a question, 2 witnesses, a quiet habit of service. You wake before dawn and the world is a thin sheet of sound. City lights dim and hush falls like linen over rooftops. You hold the taste of yesterday, a conversation in your mouth, and trace its contours with questions. The matters you met were not crude robbers. They arrived as specialists who could refine your voice and widen your influence. Their expertise arrived like a lens that narrows as much as it clarifies. You begin to separate tools that enlarge. A new trial comes in small stages. A colleague requests private work that excludes your collaborators. A lover suggests a devotion that requires silence about old friendships. A teacher asks for accelerated acceptance into an inner circle after one weekend of toil. Each instance tests whether your commitments bend under glamour. You notice the tactics repeat. They begin with flattering distinctiveness and then ask for the removal of witnesses. You meet these tests with a disciplined pause. The pause is not indecision. It reveals architecture. While you breathe, you sketch aloud what you will lose if you agree. You name people who depend on your time. You list small duties that will wither without your presence. You speak those facts into the air as if reading an inventory. The act of naming makes the price visible. Invite witnesses to hold the account with you. Your companions do not have to be numerous. Choose 2 who know you and who will speak plainly when you are sleepy or proud. They serve as mirrors that challenge euphemisms and overturn grandiose reasoning. Insist on light and signatures. Transparency prevents harm better than rhetoric. Cultivate repair as a primary metric. When a mentor or program claims elevation, watch for evidence that the process restores what it touches. Do graduates remain able to love their earliest neighbors and bring resources back into common life? If not, the curriculum is likely optimized for spectacle rather than stewardship. Demand stories of mending as proof. Attend the interior movement of your heart. After meetings, track whether your chest feels lighter or a quiet constriction appears. Does your capacity to notice suffering expand after instruction, or does it erode? Note those shifts in a small book you carry. Over time, a pattern will emerge that reveals whether the training is a ladder into sky or a tax that shrinks your circle. Practice saying small sentences that hold you steady. When flattery swells, reply, "I appreciate the kind words and I still need evidence and time." When speed is pressed, say, "If this requires urgency, I will decline." When requests ask you to isolate answers, "I only move forward with counsel." These phrases are not clever. They are simple muscles you train. Make public service part of your study routine. Each week, choose 1 person with limited means and offer time without expectation. This discipline recalibrates desire and honors dignity. It gives no immediate return in status. Yet in the long view, it inoculates you against offers that sell wings in exchange for the ground underfoot. Observe leaders who value restoration. They return after failure to repair, and they invite critique before they publish triumph. They protect the vulnerable and they explain decisions in plain terms. Seek instruction from these models. Their classrooms are not silent with worship. They are spaces where accountability is practiced and applause is not final. Resist the glamour of private testimony that asks for loyalty as proof. When someone insists that only select voices can know the truth, treat that as a red flag. Truth that thrives in private chambers often collapses when daylight arrives. Prefer rooms with windows and witnesses and choices that can be explained in a single sentence to a child. Make a small evening ritual. Before sleep, recount 1 act of service and 1 moment of restraint. Thank the people who corrected your reading. Ask for forgiveness where you rushed. These practices are not sentimental. They are mechanisms that build immunity to the slow trades traffickers and influence offer. When encounters leave you unsettled, do not hide the unease in silence. Speak it into a trusted ear. Name the task and the cost. If you find you have agreed to terms that now feel corrosive, begin repair immediately. Cancel participation where necessary. Return time to neighbors who lost access. Open your ledger and make the account right. This is steady resistance. It does not remove ambition. It becomes a way to pursue it without turning other people into tools. You keep your aims and refuse to let them become ships that leave the poor on shore. You learn to measure success by the health of the small people in your life and by the cleanliness of the debts you carry. Move through the day with a question at your lip. Who is protected if I accept this? Who is harmed if I agree? When your choices answer those queries honestly, you will be learning the craft of faithful influence. Stay on. You stand now at the middle of a narrow season where what you accept becomes the scaffolding of future days. The trials you have met taught you to keep a ledger of attention and affection. In this part you will move from guardedness into disciplined action, from private alarm into public repair. Your habits become the architecture that holds community. Begin with small, repeatable disciplines that require no platform. Wake and name intention. Choose 1 hour for unbroken work and 1 hour for presence without performance. Give an hour to a neighbor who asks nothing in return. Keep a small book and record 1 act of mercy each evening. Over time the pages will sketch a pattern that is difficult for a stranger to counterfeit. Practice questions that slow the flow of flattering speech. When praise arrives, say thank you and then ask for evidence. When opportunity demands speed, ask for a day and then sleep on the invitation. When a leader calls for private counsel, ask for witnesses and light. These forms are simple and they are strong because they reroute instinct toward accountability. Create a council of 2 friends who hold you to named promises. They do not need to be formal or many. Choose companions who know your weaknesses and who speak plainly when you are tired or proud. Meet weekly for 30 minutes. Bring 1 victory and 1 repair. Leave ego outside the room. Keep the record public within your circle and reframe secrecy as an enemy of repair. Build rituals for repair. If a promise was missed, call the person you hurt, name the lapse, and offer a concrete way to mend it. If a meeting harmed someone, ask for an amending conversation and set terms that include restitution and a public statement when appropriate. Repair is not only a private apology. It is sustained action that restores standing and trust. Train to keep daylight in conversations. Ask for written agreements when a commitment grows complex. Read them in the morning light before you sign. Invite a witness. If a plan cannot be expressed clearly to a friend in 10 sentences, it should be questioned. Clarity is a moral tool because fog allows coercion to hide. Adopt a simple rule about secrecy. If a covenant cannot survive a witness, it does not deserve your signature. If a passion asks you to cut off steady companions, it is likely asking you to shrink the space where mercy can be practiced. Prefer public paths that allow for repair rather than private corridors that reward spectacle. Practice refusal as a skill. It can be gentle and precise. Use clear sentences that refuse without shaming. State the cost and the boundary. Offer an alternate time for a conversation or a public option for the proposal. Say I appreciate the offer and I need time to consult. Say I will not proceed without witnesses. Saying no is a muscle. Strengthen it with small exercises until it is neither rude nor anxious. Cultivate leaders who return to mend. Seek instruction from those who publish failure and who show evidence of repaired harms. Favor classrooms where critique is invited and where applause is not final. Look for patterns of restoration in an instructor's past students. If their graduates remain able to love neighbors and to account for harms, you will find a reliable guide. Keep an eye on your inner weather. After training, note whether your heart contracts or opens. If your chest tightens so that tenderness grows scarce, you have a metric. If triumph arrives and the poor become invisible, you have another measure. Track these signs in your small book and let time reveal patterns. Wisdom emerges slowly and is verified by steady fruit. Make a weekly habit of service that has no return value. Cook a meal for someone far from applause. Carry a heavy box for a neighbor. Read to a child who will not post about it. These actions are antidotes to the kind of influence that wants repayment. They reset desire by reattaching it to human need rather than to platform metrics. Design environmental cues that protect your attention. Meet people where light comes freely into the room. Avoid decisions at midnight. Leave phones in a different space during conversations that matter. Let windows be witnesses. Physical arrangements shape moral outcomes. Teach by show and repair. When you lead a team, publish what went wrong and how you will make it right. Invite critics to speak and then answer in plain terms. Protect the small people on your team by refusing policies that allow praise at their expense. Leadership that is moral shows a capacity for mending. Practice a 30-day reset if you suspect compromise. Return to prayer, to slow reading, to unpaid service, to honest conversation. Cancel commitments that now feel like a tax on compassion. Tell friends what you have done and seek help to restore what was taken. Reset is not a shame. It is a discipline of restoration. Keep the habit of naming costs aloud. Before you accept a new role, ask who loses access to your time. Name those people and consult them. Let your life be a ledger that is easy to read. When your choices can be explained in a single sentence to someone who loves you, you will know you are not selling the heart. You arrive at a horizon that feels like a decision made visible. The city breathes and small lit windows look like actors waiting for a cue. You have carried a ledger of quiet practices, and those entries steady your steps. In this final movement you draw lessons into a shape you can speak aloud. A last offer appears, polished and vast, promising influence mapped in charts and applause that lasts. It stands where shadow blends with glare and asks for a final surrender. The demand is familiar. It wants you to compress care into a metric, to translate tenderness into reach, to accept a trade where affection becomes collateral. Your chest tightens because you have learned what such trades cost. You look for fruit. You remember names you promised to protect and faces of neighbors who needed your hands. You test the proposal against the smallest lives in your ledger. If a plan would leave any of those people smaller, you answer with a calm refusal. That refusal is not an absence of courage. It declares that your aim will not be bought at another's expense. When you speak, the room shivers. Some applaud, others scheme in quieter places. Let the shiver teach you nothing about your aim. Your boundary is a light that keeps the small in view. It lets you labor in love without converting people you cherish into products of ambition. You also carry mercy toward those who pitched the offer. You may pray for them, invite them to daylight, and offer pathways to repair. You will not be responsible for another person's will, but you can model a way back that includes confession, restitution, and public mending. Repair needs clear steps and shared witnesses. If they refuse repair, your duty remains to protect the affected. You gather a council. There are not many. They have kept a mirror for you when flattery rose. You tell them plainly what was asked and what you decided. They ask practical questions about restitution. Together you plan one concrete act to restore what was lost: a visit, a public correction, a modest fund, a sustained act of care. Then you step into a square where a screen is set among trees that remember rain. A circle forms in the pavement and images appear. The light is quiet but insistent. The presentation on the screen is not an advertisement for power. It is a living continuation of the teaching you have carried. It slows moments that usually rush and points to small things that endure. A voice invites you to watch and to learn for the sake of service rather than spectacle. As you watch, the lesson unfolds with testimonies of repair and leaders who return to mend. Their confessions are narrow, honest, and specific. You feel humility, patience, and the stubborn joy of hands that refuse to leave the weary behind. You recognize faces who once tempted you and faces who chose to rebuild. The film holds both without softness and without malice. At the close of the projection, the screen offers a simple action: not a command but a continuation of practice. You are invited to keep walking with the work. If you choose, you may join a small learning community so lessons arrive in order to your days. You may subscribe and the next lesson will come as a brief reminder to practice the questions that saved you from haste. You may enable notices so that a short cue draws you back to small service when a quick bargain sings. This invitation is not a demand for loyalty to a charismatic figure. It requests entry into a rhythm of return, to receive prompts that remind you to test, to pause, and to repair. If you accept, your participation will be a promise to the people who depend on you and to the neighbor whose name you keep in your pocket. You walk away from the square with a clearer pace. The city seems unchanged, yet you move differently through it. You refuse offers that strip tenderness and you practice speech that protects the small. You answer no when a bargain would shrink another. You answer yes to repair and to steady work that builds rooms where people breathe. Keep this margin. Guard these small rituals. Teach them by example. Let your life become a map others can follow without selling their neighbor. The summit you reached is not final. Each day returns with new offers. Practice the craft again and again. When another dazzling voice appears, wait until morning. Test the fruit. Bring witnesses. Choose the path that keeps your hands open to repair and your voice humble in victory. Tend what you promised each day. B. Now move into your day with the same quiet courage you rehearsed. Allow the lesson to continue in the place the screen showed you. If the teaching steadied you, consider staying close to the work by signing up so reminders arrive as small anchors. Turn on notices to receive brief prompts that call you back to care. Share this invitation with one careful friend who will practice rather than perform. Then go warm a meal for a neighbor, and let the city heal by the small hands among you.